We see a lot more people in recent years really embracing, Black August and talking about it, but it doesn't always seem to be maybe true to its origins, even with the best of our intentions in even thinking of it in terms of like celebration and stuff, right? So I was just wondering, brother, if you could just talk to me a little bit about like what is Black August and how did it come to be?
Sure. So, Black August started in August of 1979, and it was created by some of the brothers inside of the California prison system. And this really came about after the murders of some of their comrades who had been engaged in all kinds of political struggle over the years, but also a culmination of assassinations, mostly within the prison. And the idea really is to take this time to train, study, fight, essentially prepare us for what we know is our responsibility in this nation that we're in, and to also make sure that we are lifting up the very rich history of our armed struggle and that entire legacy. That is where the distinction comes in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Black August is really about those that have engaged in our freedom movement from a very particular context, and that is the context of armed struggle, whether that be clandestine, whether that be self-defense, whether that be many other things. It is not Black History Month in August. It is not an opportunity to lift up notable Black people who have done, amazing things in entertainment, in sports, in literature. Those are things that we absolutely need, but to be clear, it does not fit inside the container of Black August as it was created. So it has been growing over the years. Um, and what we're hoping is that people are able to really anchor the purpose of Black August as a North Star so that they know exactly how to not only acknowledge it, but engage in it. And some of the ways that you engage in it literally are to study, to do very intense studying on our history, on our freedom movement, on our freedom fighters, study about the trajectory of what our freedom struggle requires, to train, physical training. So everything from getting your physical body in shape to be able to defend ourselves, to be able to act on whatever is needed for us to be able to not only exist but to thrive, um, and to be able to do all of those things so that we may be able to fight effectively, so that we can win when it is time to fight. And I think what's important is that distinction of not if it isn't time to fight, but when it is time to fight. And that is a big part of it, understanding that our freedom movement in this country has always included armed self-defense, has always included um, other forms of physical engagement, and understanding that that will be a part of our future as well. So how do we prepare for it?
So we were talking about like this is more of a time of like just to study and really like uh prepare ourselves more so
Mhm.
than a time of celebration and I think as you said like a second Black History Month, right? Like how did this carry? So it started on the inside, but how did this carry from the inside to where we are now? What
Yeah,
50 some odd years later?
50 some odd years later. Yeah. I think the work of some revolutionary Black organizations and New African nationalist organizations were the ones to really carry it out. I first was introduced to Black August when I joined the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement in 94, 95.
Okay.
Um, and we ended up popularizing it as a concept 98 when we started our Black August Hip Hop Project. And it's important to name that because I think that is how a lot of people were introduced to it. And we may partially be responsible for people thinking it is a celebration, right? But in essence, part of what we intended to do with the Black August Hip Hop Project was to take this time to really highlight the um, work, the legacy, the history of our freedom fighters, and get people to recommit themselves and others commit themselves for the first time to the work to liberate our incarcerated freedom fighters. And so we created this hip hop project that took rap artists from the States who donated their time to perform, do a fundraiser here in New York. And we took them overseas. We took them to Cuba for the first 4 years. And then we ended up traveling to Brazil, to Tanzania, to South Africa, to Venezuela, to Haiti, Puerto Rico, a few other places, to hip hop communities in those locations. Again, talking about our history, talking about our freedom struggle, and talking about the need for us to secure the release of our political prisoners. And so that is how I think it was able to get popularized. We had some of the main rap artists of that time of the late 90s, early 2000s, everybody from Common, Black Thought, The Roots, Dead Prez, Black Star, Mos Def and Kweli, David Banner, Fat Joe, like all of these different people, Rosie Perez, Fab Five Freddy, all of these folks over the years. And it gained a lot of notoriety. And it's important to name that we got the charge to do this from two of our freedom fighters. Mama Nahanda Abiodun, who is an ancestor now, was a political exile in Cuba, and Mama Assata Shakur, who is also an ancestor now, was also a political exile in Cuba. The both of them, on separate occasions, came to myself and a few other people while we were in Cuba in '97 at the World Youth Festival, and basically charged us to utilize this thing that we were engaged in back in the States called hip hop, rap music. Why don't y'all do something with that to raise awareness, raise funds for the work to free our political prisoners? Seems like it's a real, has potential to be a real good vehicle. And so we came back and did what we thought was an easy lift. At that time, my job was doing concerts. And we did just that. And, quite honestly, I don't think we thought it would catch on as much as it did. But we're thankful, we're grateful, and we recognize the responsibility to make sure that as people are introduced to it, that they're introduced to the real concepts of it, the core principles of it, and be engaged in it in a way that allows for them to really understand what this means in its essence and how it's intended to be presented to the world, and most importantly to Black folks.
And then just like just keeping with that, when people just really being true to the essence and like what it's supposed to be about, can you just say a little bit about when we're talking about political prisoners, we're talking about the need to free them all, like, can you just say a little bit about that in particular, just so folks, like, just so we can ground it for folks, just so they are making the connections more consistently?
Yeah, I mean, this really comes out of organizers who, like I said, were incarcerated. And I would say all of them remained incarcerated because of their political activity. So we acknowledge them as politicized prisoners, and understand that they are a reflection of a long trajectory of amazing thinkers, committed people who understood that, because we were incarcerated did not mean that we stopped fighting. In fact, we took the fight to another level. And they did that, and many within the organizational vehicle of the BGF, the Black Guerrilla Family. And that was also a part of some of the other formations who existed in prison, their core understanding of what needed to happen. And so the idea really is to make sure that we understand the multitude of tools in our toolbox. To be very clear, a lot of our history is represented to us in a way that makes it seem like we did civil disobedience, that we
Mhm.
boycotted, that we protested, that we voted, we petitioned our way into whatever progress we have now without acknowledging that blood was shed, without acknowledging that
Mhm.
people put their lives on the line to make sure that protesters were not killed, to make sure that civil rights leaders were not
Right.
killed, to understand that we've always had this presence of armed struggle, always, and to make sure that we understand the necessity to acknowledge the existence of that tool and become familiar with that tool. When it is time for us to use it, we know how and when to use it. And so
Absolutely.
what what does that mean? Actually, it means like becoming familiar with some of the existing political prisoners who are in prison now, many of whom were part of formations that were targeted because of their politics. Um, and making sure that you study, making sure that you are engaged in political discussions, political um, uplifting spaces, enriching spaces that help ground you in that history. And again, fixing your body in a way to make sure that you're able to be able to meet the moment. And so fasting is a big part of it. People fast from sunup to sunset throughout the month of August. Very much similar to Ramadan. And in fact,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
founders say that it was inspired by Ramadan because of the discipline that Muslims
Okay.
exhibited in fasting and understanding how fasting impacted their commitment to that particular purpose. Um,
Mhm.
the other thing is some people engage in a deeper way in fasting on what they call flea days. And the flea days are days in which some of the key people who are responsible for this idea of Black August were assassinated August 1st, August 7th, the 14th, the 21st. Um,
Mhm.
and people fast for 24 hours, right? And so
Mhm.
these are just some of the ways, but I think the
Mhm.
main thing really is to be really grounded in the necessity to improve your discipline, to improve your political grounding and understanding, and improve your ability to engage in a very different way, in a very physical way, engage in the freedom struggle that our people have
Mhm.
always been engaged in.
Then, is there anything I didn't specifically ask you about Black August or MXGX or anything that you think is important to include?
Yes, I think it's important to do what we can to make sure that our commitment to our liberation is not limited to what is in front of us. That means
Mhm.
that we have to be real clear, again, not only about the multitude of tools in the toolbox, but be clear about the multitude of strategies that we can
Yeah.
and must utilize. Uh, and I think it's important to understand that the political prisoners that our organization has been committed to freeing, we've been relatively successful at bringing a number of them home. And that's a
Mhm.
flex. I'm just going to say it, right? Because people said that they would not come home. Herman Bell is home in Brooklyn. Sundiata Kohli is home in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
Jalil Muntaqim is home upstate New York. All of these people were told that they would not come home, that they would die in prison. And we've proven the state to be liars. This particular moment is creating new political prisoners. The laws that
Mm.
are being passed, the way that the federal and state and local uh, agencies are coming after not just Black folks, just to be clear, but
Mhm.
coming after folks on the left, folks who are engaging in a struggle to secure just the human rights of people. Um, People are being incarcerated for that work. That is the very explicit definition of a political prisoner, right? So understanding that this is not just something that is based on the past. How do we make sure that we don't increase the numbers of political prisoners in the United States, that we want to make sure that we engage in this work in a way that is principled, that is not negotiating our principles, but also in a way that does not offer up our bodies to be incarcerated freedom fighters.
Absolutely. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. And thank you for your patience with the tech challenges.
Understood, understood, understood. And let me just say this. I did want to say one thing because it's important when I
Yeah.
ground this, and I realized I sort of hopped over this, but there are some names that must be mentioned when we talk about the
Mhm.
creation and purpose of Black August. Jonathan Jackson, of course, George Jackson, of course, W.L. Nolan, James McLean, William Christmas, Katari Golden, Rochelle McGee, and others. But those names have to be mentioned because those
Okay.
men are all ancestors now, and all of them are responsible for making sure that the core principles of this thing that we're talking about now are meaningful and reflect, again, this legacy of our commitment to our freedom.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate. I knew what I knew, but I always learn something more when I talk to you. So I appreciate that so much.
Appreciate you.